their deputies is attained at the county assembly, so that we no longer see this business of people coming to vote at the party headquarters. I know it's not an easy decision, but it will be interesting to hear from the members that are here on that particular matter can be resolved. I think, Your Excellency, I have done my 10 minutes. I had two other things that I wanted to say, but I feel I need to respect the fact that you guided us on time. The final thing, I know this is not very easy, Your Excellency, but I have said, I don't know which language to use, that there will be a plenary session. The things that I forget, please raise them during the plenary session. And if you see me avoiding, it's because I don't want to delve into that particular topic, but you have the liberty because this is a council. I want to speak on the issue of shareable revenue. Your Excellency, the Deputy President, you have been a senator before, and you know our perspective on shareable revenue and the dispute that we've always had with our colleagues from the National Assembly on how resources are shared between the two levels of government. While we celebrate that we have moved, actually, it is during the tenure of this administration that we crossed the 400 billion mark. It is the position of the Senate that a lot more still needs to be done. If you see what is being done in our devolved units, you will appreciate, and I know for a fact that we don't have an endless pool of resources, and it's not an easy decision sometimes to decide. But given the balance of power between our House and the National Assembly, I want to argue before you, Your Excellency, today, that in many of the national government projects that are being done today, that there is a correlation between the national and the county governments. After perfecting of the model, it is possible to transfer some of those functions to counties because our devolved units equally deserve the opportunity to grow and become stable units of administration the way it was decided in our county government. And while I say that, I'm speaking about markets, I'm speaking about some of the housing and some of the rural roads, Your Excellency. I know it's a controversial topic, but that is our position as the Senate. With those many remarks, I beg to submit. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Leader of Majority Makofi. Wacha sasa tumuulize Leader of Majority Kimani Ichung'wah, National Assembly. Aseme jambo ni fire si fire.
UDA ni fire si fire. Asante, Your Excellency, the President, Deputy President, our Prime Cabinet Secretary na viongozi wote, hamjamboni. Mine also I have 10 minutes, and Your Excellency, I will not repeat or bicameral processes that we passed in the National Assembly, and many of them being money bills, they had to emanate from the National Assembly and were completed in the Senate. But Your Excellency, you remember back in 2022, as you told us at the beginning of this session, you did indicate to us that our manifesto, in fact you said, sio gazeti, la kusoma na kufunga nyama. And you said, when we christened it, as we were drafting it, the plan, that it was a call for action, and it was a plan of work to be done. And we did commit in our very first parliamentary group meeting, the joint parliamentary group meeting that we had, the very first one here, that the legislature, both houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, will be facilitators of this plan, and we shall never be disruptive of the executive in their implementation of the plan. And I must take this early opportunity to thank all members of parliament, those in the National Assembly, and our brothers and sisters in the Senate, because indeed they have been very supportive and become facilitative of the implementation of the plan and not disruptive. And even under very difficult circumstances, Your Excellency, the events of June 2024 with the Finance Bill of June 2024, the immense misinformation and disinformation that went into that bill, and the consequences of our actions as parliament, many people around the country vilified members of parliament. But the president was very firm And I remember, Your Excellency, in your State of the Nation address last year, you did indicate that indeed when the history of the transformation of this country is written, Parliament and the legislature of the 13th Parliament, the legislators that sat in the 13th Parliament, will indeed have a paragraph on the story of the transformation of our country. And that transformation, Your Excellency, as my brother Aaron has said, did not just begin with what we committed to Kenyans as we campaigned together on the question of universal health coverage, on the transformation of our agriculture, but moving on now to even what you have called or christened the Singapore dream, or the journey to Singapore. That indeed, Your Excellency, as we put on page 10 of our manifesto, and I had hoped the Secretary General would have shared a copy of our UDA manifesto and the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. Part of what, Your Excellency, you have been speaking to is the establishment of a National Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Infrastructure Fund that we actually put in black and white on page 10 of our manifesto. And we say that we shall establish a National Infrastructure Bank. We call it a bank in our manifesto, and that is what we are now calling a fund. And I know there are discussions, Your Excellency, on still how to actually implement that as a fund or as a corporation. And why not, for the support of many of these legislatures here in the National Assembly and in the Senate, we will not be where we are today. We can see light at the end of the tunnel because we know we'll be able to actualize that dream of moving our country from a third world to a first world nation because of the commitment and the dedication of members of Parliament who become facilitators of that dream and that plan that we sold together to the people of Kenya. Your Excellency, when last year but one, in 2024, Parliament was heavily criticized and vilified because of the finance bill, you encouraged many of us here on June 25th or 26th when you called us, and together we agreed not to assent to that bill, that with time, Kenyans would come to realize that indeed Parliament was right. And I say that, Your Excellency, because later that year, on the 4th and the 5th of December, and I have said this before, we passed 97% of what was contained in the June finance bill without any incident, Your Excellency, at the end of the year. It is through the passage of those bills, the Business Laws 1 and Business Laws 2, the Tax Amendment Act of 2024, and the Tax Procedures Amendment Act of 2024, that we have been able to realize the immense movement of infrastructure projects, especially around the roads projects. Your Excellency, you remember, right around that time in June, July of 2024, we also amended the RMLF Act that eventually last year we were able to pass a small amendment to that act to help us realize the securitization program that enabled the administration to raise over 175 billion shillings that is helping us to move forward many road contracts that had stalled. And all of you are aware that we had road projects that had stalled in our constituencies, in our wards, from way back as 2015, 2016. And those road contracts today are ongoing, courtesy of the changes that we made to the RMLF Act and securitization of part 5 shillings out of the 25 shillings that is there in RMLF. Your Excellency, the health laws that we passed in 2023 is what Honorable Aaron was speaking to, and the Deputy President has spoken to it, on SHA, or the Social Health Authority, and how that has helped to actualize the dream for universal health coverage. And there are stories of the success of SHA today, Your Excellency, courtesy of the resilience of these members of Parliament, MCAs and our governors who have helped us also to roll out and encourage Kenyans to register. That indeed today across the country, Kenyans are not being, we are not pleading as we were pleading before with Kenyans to register in SHA. They are the ones through word of mouth who are encouraging each other to register for SHA to be able to benefit from universal health coverage. Your Excellency, we have also supported in a big way the agricultural sector and the reforms the Deputy President spoke to, whether it's from the sugar levy, the 4% that we put in 2023, 2024, and also, Your Excellency, in many supplementary and annual appropriations bills, we have ensured that we appropriate resources to all the programs in agriculture, in energy, in roads, that will ensure that we're able to roll out that development program that we have for our country. And I must be very appreciative, Your Excellency, that we have never, as a leadership of the House, had any problem with any of our members. And indeed, we have seen the support of many members of Parliament, even being able to speak to those who do not subscribe to our manifesto, to convince them in the passage of the appropriations bills that we do, the finance bills that we have been doing every year, because without the appropriation bills that we pass in the National Assembly, the supplementary appropriations that come to supplement what would otherwise not have been provided in the main appropriations bill, that is what actually rolls out the programs that we are speaking about here today. And we indeed feel part and parcel of the successes of this administration, because, as Aaron has said, we campaign together and we are one team. Your Excellency, I did allude to the infrastructure fund. And I know many of the laws that we have passed have come in to feed this plan that we are speaking about here today. But the most critical that is ahead of us now is the establishment of that National Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Infrastructure Fund. And Your Excellency, when last year in the State of the Nation address you spoke to Kenyans and spoke of the dream to raise money through privatization of our state-owned enterprises, many people took it as a story, and indeed many pundits in the media said that this is a new narrative, to Singapore. But today, Your Excellency, with the opening of the IPO of Kenya Pipeline and the ongoing process in the privatization of Safaricom, we can actually see it now becoming a reality. That, as you have said before, in the course of this year, we will have raised the first 1 trillion shillings, the first 3 trillion actually, because we will be raising the first 1 trillion shillings in the next month or so. And Your Excellency, we would not be able to realize this had we not passed into law. And I must thank members of Parliament who helped us to repeal and reenact the Privatization Act that established that legal framework that now is enabling the privatization of state-owned enterprises. Again, Your Excellency, through the enactment of the Government-Owned Enterprises Act, which was entered into law at the beginning of December, we will now be able to run our state-owned enterprises or our parastatals in a more efficient way, and in a way that we even put aside now political patronage as we move to a first world nation, because in first world nations, state corporations are not run politically, but are run by boards that are appointed on merit and on the basis of what they can add to the value in those organizations. And Your Excellency, we look forward to the operationalization of this Government-Owned Enterprises Act that will, in a significant way, transform how we manage state-owned enterprises and how they deliver on social obligations or public social obligations to the people of Kenya that have elected all of us. Finally, Your Excellency, on the National Infrastructure Fund, I know it has been lost to many people. How do we raise 1 trillion shillings? And Your Excellency, is good because I'm a student of economics and an accountant. To just take 2 seconds to explain. For instance, the Deputy President spoke to the construction of a new airport. That new airport will probably cost, I don't know how much, maybe about 200 billion shillings. If we were to raise taxes or revenue to finance that project, 200 billion shillings from our taxes, it would mean we go back and increase taxes to Kenyans. And we did commit that we shall no longer continue raising taxes from Kenyans. Equally, the president has told us that he took over an administration that inherited heavy debts, public debt. And we also committed, as we